It is a city that symbolises the complicated, intricate ties between Russia and the former territories of the Soviet Empire. A city marked by the ups and downs of its history. We're taking you today to the city of Narva, the easternmost city in Estonia. In 1940, under a pact between Stalin and Hitler, the USSR invaded and annexed the Baltic country. Arrests, deportations, executions. The first Soviet occupation was so brutal that when Hitler broke the alliance and attacked the USSR in 1941, part of the Estonian population welcomed the Nazis as liberators. Tens of thousands of Estonians joined the Waffen-SS, willingly or by force. But in 1944, the Red Army recaptured Narva and advanced westwards. Estonia, once again, fell under Soviet rule. Tens of thousands of Estonians again deported to Gulag camps. After the war, Stalin forbid Estonians from returning to Narva. Instead, the city was repopulated with Russians and Russian speakers from other regions of the Soviet Union. Today, more than 30 years after the fall of the USSR, 90% of Narva's population is still Russian-speaking, and that brings fears of a new conflict. Vladimir Putin already claims to be denazifying Ukraine. So after Transnistria, South Ossetia, Donbass and Crimea, could Vladimir Putin once again activate the scenario of defending Russian speakers, this time on the territory of a NATO member country? Elena Volochine with Gulliver Cragg revisit Narva for France 24.
They are barely 100 meters apart. On one side, the medieval fortress of Ivangorod in Russia. And just across the river that today forms the border, that of Narva in Estonia. It houses a museum tracing the town's history of being conquered and reconquered.
This room is called the Garrison Room. On display are representatives of the various armies and units that participated in battles for the town of Narva over the centuries.
Germanic, Swedish, and then part of the Russian Empire, Estonia was never independent before 1918. But it is what happened next, under the two great tyrannies of the 20th century, that has left the deepest scars.
Here, in front of a soldier from the Soviet Union, there's an Estonian representative of the German army. These two gentlemen could have been brothers. There were such cases here. The Soviet Army's recruitment commission would arrive in some village, choose a family, and take the eldest son, for example, to the front. Then the German occupation started, and the Germans would take the same village, and they too would recruit from among the local population. And in the same village, in the same family, it would be the younger son's turn to go to fight, and the brothers could end up in opposing trenches on the same battlefield.
After 1 year of Soviet occupation in 1940, Estonia fell to Hitler's Germany. 3 years later, in 1944, the USSR took over again. After the war, Estonians from Narva were not allowed to return to the city. The Soviets considered them Nazi collaborators. Boris's grandmother was among thousands of Russians brought in to rebuild and repopulate the town.
Unfortunately, Narva never looked the same again. This beautiful Swedish town, once the jewel in the crown of Sweden, was dismantled. The town rebuilt by the Soviet Union got repopulated mainly by Russian speakers. And that's still the case today. 90% of Narva's population are Russian speakers.
After the fall of the USSR, Estonia declared that the Soviet period had been an occupation and ruled these population transfers illegal. Only pre-1940 residents would be granted Estonian citizenship automatically. Others, if they wanted a passport, would have to learn Estonian. As a result, 34 years on, nearly half of Narva's Russian speakers either have only Russian citizenship or are stateless. History itself is a battlefield.
Eestis on eri aegadel rohkem või vähem rakendatud viitvaatenurka. Sageli on neid ka kombineeritud.
Tensions can easily flare up when you ask people in Narva about the past. Today, this pensioners' association is meeting for brunch at the headquarters of the Union of Estonians of Narva. The head of the union, Ants Liimets, has dug out some old meeting documents and photos of its members from 1939.
Here we see the whole union, its members gathered for a banquet.
Ants has also drawn up a list of all the union members who lived in Narva before the first Soviet occupation.
I made this list because maybe some of the children
Or acquaintances.
are still alive.
We'll surely find some acquaintances.
But despite these efforts, they have not identified a single family still living in Narva today.
The population was replaced. That was Stalin's national policy. Today, Russia is pursuing a similar policy in parts of Ukraine. This history does not prevent elderly people from living here today, though some grievances remain.
Indeed, the atmosphere grows tense when I interview Alla Vaiterovna. As a young girl, she experienced the Nazi siege of Leningrad in Russia. Her father, a Red Army soldier, died there in 1942.
There was a famine in Leningrad. My stepmother would eat our ration cards. We would dip our fingers in the salt. I stopped being able to walk because of the hunger, and my father had an inflammation of the colon. When he finally got fed, it killed him.
В России, да, тоже принято, и в Советском Союзе, что это освободители, а некоторые считают, что наоборот, это оккупанты, которые пришли сюда захватывать историю. Как вы видите эту историю, вот эти вот расхождения в нарративе?
Everyone has their own opinion, and that won't change.
Stop. We don't want to discuss these questions.
For us, it was not a liberation, full stop.
The topic is a source of conflict. Myla's grandfather died in a Gulag labor camp after being deported in 1941. Her uncle was part of the second wave of Estonians deported by Stalin in 1949. He too died in Siberia.
It's a very painful topic because in my family, on my mother's and on my father's side, they were repressed, though they had done nothing wrong, and they were prevented from coming back here just because they were Estonian.
I want to play the piano.
Sure, let's chill out a bit.
Ultimately, good humor is restored. But in Narva, the ghosts of the past are never far away. These hills west of the town saw bloody clashes between the Wehrmacht and the Red Army in 1944. Those who honour the Soviet fallen gather here every 9th of May, the day Germany surrendered. But today is the 26th of July, anniversary of the Soviet offensive, and it's the other side's turn to commemorate those they see as Estonia's true defenders. These people are supporters of the Waffen-SS's 20th Estonian Division.
Here we fought for our country and not for Germany. These soldiers fought for Estonia. Thanks to them, some 80,000 Estonians were able to escape and emigrate to Europe. Otherwise, they might have been killed or sent to Siberia.
Sinimägede lahing sümboliseeris seega paljuski kogu Eesti rahvavõitlust idavaenlasega.
All the same, there is a form of glorification of the Third Reich here. The Friends of the Estonian Legion have adopted as their logo the Totenkopf skull and crossbones, most notoriously worn by the guards at the Nazi concentration and death camps. But they prefer to avoid that topic and focus more on Stalin's crimes.
The Nazis also committed certain crimes against humanity, whilst accusing others of it. In war, that can happen.
Do you consider Hitler as a criminal?
The criminals were the ones at the table at the Nuremberg trials. Stalin, Churchill, and even Roosevelt was a criminal, because it's thanks to him that we were enslaved to Stalin for 50 years.
We asked Taimo to show us around the Museum of the Blue Hills Battle. But we are stopped at the entrance.
No. Only. Yeah.
We try to insist, and things get tense.
No.
In the end, accompanied by a member of the association, we managed to film inside the museum with a hidden camera.
Captain Paul Maitla.
Okay.
He was here with Hill.
The exhibition reflects Estonians' complex relationship to the period under Nazi occupation, a relationship that Russian propaganda exploits, as our guide explains.
midagi on siin ikkagi olnud hea, ikka. No seepärast ongi, et me hoiamegi nagu natukene, ütleme, sellise asja koha pealt, nagu lihtsalt ei tuldaks kaameraga sisse ja... No eks propaganda on ju ikka ida pool, nagu ma arvan, sa tead ju kuidas.
In claiming to be continuing Stalin's war, might Vladimir Putin use denazification as a pretext for attacking Estonia, as he did with Ukraine? In reaction to the war launched by Russia in 2022, the Baltic country has also toughened its line on its Soviet inheritance. Those who do not have Estonian passports because they didn't learn the language can no longer vote in local elections. And school teachers are now required to show a higher level of Estonian than what's required for citizenship. Elena is a school psychologist. She works part-time for this NGO, which helps children with special needs. A Russian speaker, she lost her job at one school last year and recently just lost another.
For decades, I took Estonian lessons in parallel to my work. But unfortunately, I just can't achieve the required level. For now, the school has not found another psychologist to replace me. It hasn't found a new speech therapist or special needs teacher either, nor 30 other professionals who had to leave the school just as I did. To replace us, they hired an accountant, a customs inspector, a former policeman, even a seamstress.
Without much hope of success, Elena continues to study the language. It is a bitter pill to swallow for Narva's Russian speakers. Elena has lived here since 1984 and managed to pass the citizenship exam.
Привет!
Her maternal grandfather was a Red Army soldier, as was her own father, who fought on the Leningrad and Narva fronts. Elena says she understands Estonia's feelings about the Soviet occupation, but not its policies towards Russian speakers, who can even be stripped of their citizenship once obtained.
In their bitterness, Estonians refuse to understand that it is not my mother, our neighbour, or me who were the occupiers. At the time when we came here, it was all part of the same country. And we didn't leave in 1992. We stayed on to live here. We've been good and honest citizens. So it's not fair to punish us just because our native language is Russian.
It's painful for sure. We feel humiliated. I've lived here for 65 years. Can you imagine? And suddenly there you go. I'm no one.
But like Elena, her mother, and their neighbour, residents of Narva try to resist ethnic isolationism.
Today, we are welcoming experts from Portugal. They're going to share their experience in multicultural groups and explain how they teach people from different cultures.
Elena Lochmatova heads an NGO running cultural projects and civic initiatives. One of its priorities is to break Narva's linguistic divide.
Language shows that language can and be a barrier, but it can be also a bridge.
Our sessions are in more and more demand lately because people are anxious due to the war. They worry about the language problem and what's happening in the country. These meetings offer them a chance to be together, to have a laugh, to learn something new, and to keep moving forward.
We're going to make a cycle, please. When you receive the ball, you read what is right, and you complete the sentence.
One goal I want to achieve is to become a licensed psychotherapist.
Elena's sessions clearly are much appreciated, a breath of fresh air in distressing times. But Elena says that what's really needed is dialogue between the government in Tallinn and the Russian-speaking East.
Residents of Narva love their country. Even if they're not ethnic Estonians, they love Estonia. They want to be implicated in the life of the country, participate in its growth. Dialogue is very important, and in such a small country, achievable.
The last thing Elena would want would be for Vladimir Putin to get involved.
There are reasons for stating that Russian speakers in Estonia don't enjoy the same rights as Estonian speakers. But there is no reason for Russia to meddle in Estonia's internal affairs.
Despite its cultural and linguistic proximity, Russian narratives have so far gained little traction in Narva. Most of its residents are aware of the threat. And the town's tragic history makes them all the more determined to live in peace.